discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, this video is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering you a free audiobook with a 30-day free trial membership. All you need to do is go to audibletrial.com/BGUnlocked. The link is in the description below, and now enjoy the video. Hey everyone, welcome to the discussion for CO2 Second Chance. So, we've played this game a couple times now, both with 4 players. Essentially, we've done it with just you and me.
Yeah.
And so here's what I want to kick this review off with, because we the first time we played it, we thought we were doing something wrong because we lost. Actually, we played this 3 times. The first time we lost almost immediately.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, we must have been doing something wrong. So then we played it again. We reset it because we weren't that far in, and then we started over and we actually won. After kind of fixing some of the rules of being able to go over 500. Because the board doesn't wrap around like that, so that's kind of annoying just from a design element, because you have to put something in the 500, they don't give you anything to do so. But I was sitting here and I'm like, well, how the fuck can you stop the fossil fuel plants from showing up, or stop yourself from losing? Apparently that is a very common question. Someone posted on Board Game Geek, I'm starting with the assumption that I'm misunderstanding the rules here, but according to my understanding of the rules, there is a very good chance in a competitive or even cooperative 4-player game that the players will lose at the start of 2040, even with perfect play. And he puts up all his reasonings of, the dirty power plants, the fossil fuel plants will be coming out. There's, you start with, where was it? There it is. There's basically a certain number of 40s. So even if you focus on getting 2 power plants built in the earlier ones, so there's 6 areas, you could still get 4 40s
And lose.
And if you don't have the points to net it out,
Round 1 you won't. I don't think. I think it'd be very hard to.
if you got 40s. So with that being said, this guy's comment was, per Vital Lasarda, this is by design. With the rules as written, even with perfect play, you will lose a good percentage of the time. Where did I find... dang it. I thought I had... Oh, we lost the first round. Someone said... Dang it. Dang it, I thought I found it. I'm bummed out. Essentially, what it is Vita Lasarda made this game with the intent that no matter how well you do, even if we played it perfectly, we could still lose, because the real world scenario is that we already fucked ourselves enough with climate change that no matter how much effort we put into it, we're still fucked.
Yeah.
Essentially is what his reasoning behind it is. And with that being said, I get it. I get the message he's trying to send. I totally support the message that he's trying to send. However, I have always made the argument that theme does not always equal good game mechanics.
Yep.
Because, wow, this is a thematic game, and oh boy, is it a very, very thematic game. The reason why people play games is not to be reminded of the fucking real world, because the real world sucks. So it's it's not fun to sit there, because you want hope and you want to have a fun time playing it. So the game should be hard, and it is very hard.
It is.
But you should be able to, with the scenario that you're given, the tiles and all that you're given, there should be a chance of victory. Not a, well, thematically we already fucked ourselves, so I'm gonna fuck you in the game too.
I really disagree with them. Basically saying you can play the game perfectly and you can still lose. Because to me that takes away desire to play the game.
Right, because it's because whenever you're gonna set it up, there's always the chance of, well, we might win this time. Because I've played games that are hard. Yeah. Almost every cooperative game is hard, or at least it should be. But to make that an intentional decision kind of rubs me the wrong way. Even though, once again, the message is clear. Like, I get it, but you can get that message across by also letting players have fun.
He gets the message across just by how challenging the game is.
Right.
And we'll probably get more into that into the discussion.
Right.
And how it plays out.
But I wanted to talk about that because, first of all, this theme is very political, especially currently.
Yep.
At the time of this recording, climate change is a huge topic all over the news, and I'm not trying to spark fucking anything, but I think it's an important game, and I actually very much love the theme because it's not done anywhere. All of his games that I've seen are themes that are very integrated together and barely touched on. Except for one. He has one called Vinos, but there's another game similar to that. There's other one about the gallerist running an art gallery. The one that you were on the channel for, Escape Plan, was you don't do the heist, you're trying to get out of the city for the heist. So it's weird because I love everything about this game, but I don't like the fact that it's like, because the environmental goals are fucking, it's insane. Like, whenever it comes to strategy games, it bugs me when I can't figure out where we went wrong.
Yep.
Like, if I was to play a strategy game and I'm like, oh, it was at this point, like, that move is probably what cost me, or cost us, or whatever. I'm trying to think back, like, maybe not doing forest so early on, because then we were kind of scrambling, because the last time we played, we did forest at the end of the game, and it only continued to net us out from there, but if it really wasn't that, it was literally just the way the tiles came out.
Basically.
Like, that fucked us.
I mean, yeah, we probably could have gotten more points last round, but that we were trying to think ahead in the theme of the game, and having to worry about getting all your points now, and not think ahead, to me, goes against the theme of the game.
Right.
And one of the aspects of the game that I like so much.
Yeah, the fact that you have to think decades ahead.
You have to think of the next decade, the next generation.
Right.
And how...
Right, and instead of currently where it's like, okay, well, what do we do now? It's like, but the entire game, you're not doing stuff now. You're doing stuff for the future because you go up until 2040. The only way I could have thought that we could have done something about that is instead of building in fucking Asia and stuff, we could have built in North America and in South America to get rid of the 30s.
The only thing I can think of is this: we just shouldn't have built that recycling plant and try to get more knowledge, and that's the only. Your turn.
Well, no, because the knowledge got rid of the.
That's true. So it really got us 7.
Yeah, because then we got rid of those. I mean, in all reality, the only thing I can personally think, I think we did really well up until we lost. But it's just the fossil fuel tiles they're just random. And that's really the only random aspect of the game. And I don't like that. That's probably my biggest negative. There's actually 2 negatives I have about the game, so we can talk about those. The biggest one I have is, and this is only for the cooperative, we haven't played competitive, and I have no interest in playing this game competitively, because it's semi-cooperative, and I fucking hate semi-co-op. Because it's like, so, I just don't like semi-cooperative. But I don't like how, because they take the competitive nature of this game and then make it cooperative, but they still have some elements of competitive, like private goals.
Right.
I don't think that needs to be in a cooperative game at all. I could probably house rule it because it does nothing except just make people, because you can't talk about your hand, you can't talk, so it's still kind of, it feels competitive, but it's not in any way.
Right.
There's no logic or reasoning to explain why you can't talk to one another.
Yeah, in a cooperative game, we should not have to keep our cards a secret.
Exactly.
Especially the end of game ones.
Right.
Because those are ones that we should be collectively trying to work. We have to collectively try to work towards.
Yeah, because it's like, and you can't even like allude to them. Like some games, when it's cooperative, you can't like tell them exactly what you have, but you can kind of be vague. You can't even do that. You have to just, okay, no, I have to infrastructure. Yeah. It's like it puts an unnecessary barrier between a cooperative game, and even in the fucking rules, it says right, not there, right here. Well, I thought it was in here, so now Dang it. Oh, there it is. This game offers 2 modes of play. A fully cooperative mode of play. Not really. Yeah, you all work together and there's no backstabbing, there's no nothing, but why add goals? First of all, why add, like, there should be objectives that everyone has to beat, which are these.
Right.
Like, so everyone has to go for those, and it's like, okay, well, you can do that, but then I have my own, so I don't like the private goals in a cooperative game.
I think the goals would be better if you laid out 8 cards up there and said, as a team, you have to complete 4.
Yeah. Well, that's what the UN cards are.
Basically.
Um,
I think the UN cards could just be done away with.
Yeah, they're just kind of something, they're just like there. Like,
to me, they don't add much theme or anything. They don't add. To me,
Yeah.
they don't add much to the game.
right. There's technically a variant you can add, which is a UN, like, where is it? What do they call it? I thought, oh, that's operations. Where is it? The UN inspectors variant, and basically they move along the environmental goals, and then if you don't complete that round, then you lose double points for it, which is just, I mean, that's just stupid, because that's the hardest thing about the game.
I like the goals because they fit with the theme. So like, oh, we need you to build at least 2. Like, we want you to build at least 2 plants
Yeah.
in these countries, or
Right.
we want you to build 2 of the same, plant as a player. So that it does make sense. I think they could be tailored to a group.
Right.
So you're
Yeah,
working
it should be group objectives.
But it does make sense for the game.
The other thing is, since it's fully cooperative, I don't like the idea of, like, because once again, it feels competitive, but it's not. Like, we can't share money.
Yep.
Like, so, and I understand if you could share money, the game would be too easy.
Yeah.
Like, having, and like, being able to share knowledge and all that, it'd be too easy. So, that one I'm not too upset about, because it lets people feel like, well, okay, only this company has their own money, so they're going to put money into it. But it's just something worth mentioning, that if you want to play this fully cooperatively, fully is in quotations, because you can't share anything. You can't share knowledge, you can't share cards, you can't share money. So there's that. The other thing that I think is just weird, it's not really a complaint, because it doesn't really matter a whole lot in a fully, the control aspect. It makes sense in the competitive game, but they just kept it in the cooperative for no reason. Like, it's like, oh, hey, I control Asia, okay.
The only thing it does is put the burden on that player at the end of the game to basically pay up one of the tokens.
Yeah. Or if they can't, then they have to be penalized, and then we lose points for that.
Right.
I don't know, do you have any negatives? And then, the fossil fuels are, like, I like that they're in the game, because that adds a little bit more element and theme to it. I just don't like how random they are.
Yeah, and even though they're random, I think they could be better balanced somehow. Like we touched on earlier, it does put a bad taste in my mouth that you can play the game perfectly and you'll still lose.
Yeah.
And I know that's the way with games that are kind of luck, and I think the luck portion of the game is the tiles and the cards.
Yeah. But we're with, like, the luck aspect, because I don't mind luck in games, but in a game like this where everything is just so clean,
right?
And everything is at your fingertips, like, you know everything, you know what you need to do. The only thing that's random is the tiles, the environmental goals that come out. They're random at the beginning of the game, but you don't. It's not like they're coming out randomly, and you're like, oh, we have to deal with that now.
Yep.
Like, so you look at all those, you're like, okay, we need to do Asia and North America, or Asia and Oceania. And we need to focus on these, because this is what's going to hurt us.
It would almost be easier if you laid out all your fossil tokens at the start of the game.
Yeah.
And then you could say, okay, this round, we know that by the end of 2010, we're going to have this much hurt on our emissions.
Yeah, that would make
Which
sense.
in real world, you kind of know.
Yeah.
In a sense.
I mean, because
you're like, okay, we kind of know where we're at. We kind of know how we're going to.
Yeah.
Probably by the end of this decade, or, we're probably going to know about where we're going to be.
Right.
And then you could plan ahead better.
That's a good idea.
And that's a way you could easily just make a house roll and play the game that way.
You could. I just don't know how it would break it, because when you look at it, So from a game perspective, I see where they were coming from. It's like, okay, we're trying to do this decade, so let's build some renewable energy plants. Okay, well, we did it in a few, but these countries still need energy, so they went with this one.
Right.
Randomly, I guess. They're like, oh, fuck it, let's throw a dart. Oh, it's oil this time. So that comes out, but it would also make sense that not a lot of countries do renewable energy,
Right.
so it would make sense that, okay, at the beginning of the decade, you put them out, and if you don't do away with them, then it hits your emissions.
Right. Or if you do them all at the beginning of the game, and say, you know, we had that, we're in 2010, we're like, oh, we built the plant, well now that, you know, you can put that on top of it and that goes away. We have now offset our emissions.
Right,
and you can kind of plan ahead because, you know, in the real world,
you can look at it
countries
and be like,
are worse
China is like
countries are worse than others.
Yeah.
So, and just, I mean, it doesn't always fall into place. Like South America, they want trees. Well, you know, that does make sense because of deforestation. But, you know, they might have 40-40. Okay, they're probably the worst country. We need to focus on them.
Yeah.
And that would make the game a little bit, it would fit the theme.
Right.
And the thematic sense of it.
Right. I just don't know how you would do, I mean, I guess you could house rule that. Because...
And we could definitely play, you know, a game with a couple of the house rules that we like sharing the cards and putting them all out. I think that might make it more enjoyable. I'd be curious.
I'd be curious to see how that worked too. Like, because if it's like, okay, 2010, part of the setup for that or part of the cleanup is we put all those out and then we don't. But then, because then there's the aspect of the points, the victory points that help you lower it afterwards.
Well, at the end of the game, you still total it up. So you put them out to start, but you don't. It doesn't hit you till the end of the decade.
You're right.
Is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in agreement with you. We could lay out just the decade that we're going into at the start of the decade.
Yeah, and then it's like
because we don't know where we're going to be at 2040.
Exactly.
So don't lay them out. But you can lay them out at the start of the decade.
So yeah, it's 2010 that we have 30, 20, 20, 20, 30, and 30, and then it's like, okay, this is what will hit us.
And I don't think it would make the game a whole lot easier because, you know, we could have these green tokens in, like we had in Asia and Oceania, but they might have all 20s, and then we have 40s in Africa. It's like well, do we want to try to close these off, or do we want to get rid of the 40?
Right.
Because, you know, hey, it's round 3, that's going to cost us 12 points.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's we're doing the same exact thing, just in a different order, is really what it is. And I would be interested to see if how that would change the game up, because both sides I can see are being thematic. Did you have any other negatives that are popping out?
Not really that we've covered. I think the money's well balanced. I think the knowledge skills are well balanced in terms of your progression. I really, really like this game.
I do too. And it like, talking about it a little bit more, like, I'm not as upset that, because there's games like Pandemic where it's like, no matter how well you play, just the way that the cards come out can still just fuck you.
Right.
But the biggest difference between Pandemic and this one is Pandemic is an hour.
Right.
This is essentially 3 or 4 hours long. What does the box actually say?
2. It says 120 minutes. I'd say that's
120 minutes for you before you lose.
Yeah, I'd say that's minimum.
Yeah.
We took about an hour and
Probably
a half.
at a 2-player game.
Yeah.
I like the player count. I actually like this as a 2-player game.
So do I.
Because, and here's the other thing, negative or not, it doesn't really bother me, but some people could. This plays up to 4. It's since you can't share money, you can't do anything, 4 people is a little much.
I agree.
Like, regardless of who you're playing with.
It's too many minds to try to be thinking and strategizing.
Yeah, and there's
with.
The game doesn't provide you enough, like, strategic options that 4 people can contribute.
Yep.
Like, 2 is enough to be like, well, what if we did this, and bounce back and forth. Maybe 3, but 4 people, like, there's almost always kind of 1 or 2 or 3 right answers that you're not all going to have something to contribute. Most of the time, half the people are going to be like, no, that works.
Yeah.
And then they only have to worry about their own objectives. I think actually at a 2-player game, because the actions equal out, like, that's another thing I do still really like, is that the number of players, there's not more, more tiles coming out. There's nothing's more random. You still have the same number of actions. It actually would probably be easier. Well, no, because the only thing more difficult would be you'd have to specialize more in knowledge with your scientists, which isn't too terribly hard, but you have 4 actions to do it instead of 2. I think that's interesting. Number of players, you get less actions. I mean, my favorite thing about this game is everything, like, just like Escape Plan, and I'm assuming the Gallerist, I'm assuming his Terraforming Mars one, which is probably going to be fucking insanely hard as well, is every single action piece is grounded in theme.
Yep.
Except for kind of the coal tiles. I mean, the fossil fuel tiles are still thematic. This is how they come out as weird. But yeah, like, where you move your scientists makes sense.
Yep.
Like, the knowledge you gain makes sense. Going to summits makes sense.
I mean, yeah, I think for me, like, my biggest positive is just how well the theme of this game clicks with the current world.
That's also true.
Because you start the game and you're like, holy shit, where do we start?
Yeah.
And that's almost about, I mean, that the world's in. It's like, we've created this clusterfuck.
Right.
How do we start?
How do we fix it?
And the first round is very overwhelming because it feels like you're not getting anywhere.
That's true.
It's like, how about this? Well, how about this?
Yeah.
Well, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And
well, should we start with 4? That's the hardest one. So
right.
How can we do it the cheapest and the easiest?
Yep,
It's like, that's
exactly.
short term. That's not helping us.
Let's just recycle,
Yeah.
you know. And so, like, the costs of everything is if it's the theme, and that goes back to the balance thing. And because, like, recycling is cheap and easy, but it doesn't get you a whole lot.
It doesn't help. And it's like, hey, emission or the fucking ozone is fucked up. Okay, what's the best way to balance that? Okay, forestation. Great.
Where are we going to do it?
Yeah. Well, that costs a lot of money. And then, okay, well, how do we do it? Oh, yeah, no one knows how to do it. So, because that's the hardest one to get up on the track. You're right. It is very, very thematic. Yeah, with the current world. And I will say, though, if you can make it, for the most part, past the first decade,
yep, I would say
it's a little bit easier.
And the last time we played, we did win. We got through the whole game. And we said it already, but the theme of the game, in the sense that when you strategize as you're playing, you have to be thinking a decade ahead. Yeah. And that's...
And I think that might have also been where we got caught up, because we were thinking so much. We're like, oh, we're fine on points. And then it's like, oh, great!
Right.
Still, because I didn't think that the fossil fuels...
We were thinking we're good.
Yeah.
And we were thinking so hard in the next century, we're neglecting the current one.
Right.
I mean, like I said, I really, really do like this game. I could spew out a whole lot of positives and really get down in the weeds.
Right.
But, you know, only a couple negatives that we've talked about. Really, I like it a lot.
Right. Because some things that might seem weird to others, where it's like, well, can I move my scientist straight to a summit? And it's like, no. Why? It's like, because he doesn't know anything about it. He has to go to a project first and then move. Right. And then he got knowledge at the plant, so then now he can go talk about it. There's a lot of, like, and still, once again, even with Escape Plan, this game has a wicked learning curve. Actually, not even just like Escape Plan was way lighter than this one.
I would agree.
Still had, and everything in that game made sense, thematic sense, and touched on but it's so difficult to teach this game because it's like, I can't just tell you what you do on your turn.
Right.
I have to tell you literally everything about the game. And which is, some people won't like that because they like to be able to, well, don't worry about what these do. Like, especially in cooperative
We'll talk about
games.
when it comes up.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Just do your turn, and then we can talk about cooperative games. I can help you. His games, though, I mean, it's short of me just being like, all right, take this and read it.
Read it.
Yeah, because I mean that's essentially what I had to do. I read this thing 3 times before I taught everyone, and even then, like with Crystal and Kat, it still didn't really click.
Yep.
I mean, with you and I, it did, and even then, it's like, well, we still had to go back to the rules, and that's kind of another negative, is that because of the cards, you kind of have to be like, well, what are they for? Like, what are those?
It'd be easy.
Not the lobbyists. The lobbyist cards make sense, and actually, they have some symbolism that I really like. I like that the 3 main actions are 3 symbols, so you can look at your cards and be like, oh, okay, that's an infrastructure. I have to infrastructure a wind plant, and I get that.
Right.
I like the red and green icons, where it's like red is what you pay, green is what you get. It's just quick to look at. I like symbolism icons in games like that, as long as it's minimal and it's used almost everywhere. Like that gain knowledge symbol is everywhere.
Right.
And so it makes sense once you see it.
And I think with these cards, they could have easily done a description on
They
it.
could have.
Because
yeah.
that's the only
Like,
reason.
this is just really big. They could have easily just told you.
Right, and the descriptions in there are not long.
Yeah.
So it'd be like 1 or 2 lines, and that's the only reason I've had to pick up the rule book.
Yeah.
Is to, because no matter how many times you play, you might get a new card and be like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's like,
I think they could have done that.
And some things like, which is also weird, but also, I mean, it's not a negative, I'm just talking about aspects of the game, is like, cards that are like, the Summit ones, for example, where it's like, oh, okay, you infrastructure that, so he went to a solar summit. It's like, I can't play this because it's not my turn, so I have to willingly move my scientists there to be able to play that to gain more knowledge. I like the lobbyist cards.
I do too.
They add a little bit more. I mean, once again, this game is just so clean. Like, even just playing it once, because of just how integrated it is with everything, it just makes sense. At least to me it does. The market is just very easy. I like how it's not a convoluted market. It's just, hey, once this is empty, price goes up because people are buying them.
Yep.
If you're selling it to a lot, price goes down because they're like, oh, well, we're not going to keep paying a lot for things that people don't want. The control, I could live without. It doesn't really do a whole lot. But another thing that I think that I really like is I like how the different plants all look different. Like, I just like how it's solar panels, and then it's rivers, and then recycling. I just think that it looks really
I do like
neat.
how they fit together too.
Like with the infrastructure. I don't know what the hell these are. Like, because I can see, okay, that looks like a forest, that looks like solar panels.
Bulldozer.
Oh.
I think.
That might be it.
That's the only thing I could think of.
That's probably the closest thing, because it is infrastructure. Okay. Well, but yeah, that is probably what that is. That makes some sense. But yeah, like, this game has some weird things. Do you like this one or Escape Plan better? Now that you still like this one better?
I like the theme of this one better. It's easier for me to immerse myself in the theme of the game.
That's true. And the other cool thing about it, because this isn't a terrible rule book, they do things a little bit backwards. They explain the executive actions before the main actions. I didn't do that in my How to Play. I did the main actions first, and then, because once you understand the main actions, the executive actions will just make it. I mean, either way, I just thought executive actions were a little bit weird. But each example they gave, they gave some real world knowledge behind it. Like scientists, the scientific community has shown that climate change has been accelerating in recent decades, and that certain human activities have had significant impact. Among the major human factors is the release of carbon dioxide from fossil fuel power plants. And they do it on every page, under every single example. Like carbon trading, UN goals for 2030, operations, infrastructure. So, and it all relates to the current build power plant, forestation in the game, and it just kind of just explains more and more based off of the actions that he put into it. So he definitely did his research. I don't know which one I like better because Escape Plan and CO2, and those are the only two of his I've played, but from Escape Plan, I was like, I have to play his other games. So I have the Gallerist, I backed On Mars off Kickstarter, and then I don't think I might get Vinos just to have it, because I really love his games. Do you remember what I gave Escape Plan? I think I gave it a 9.
9 or 9.5.
Yeah. I think... just freak out. I think I like this one better because this is cooperative.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of competitive games. I'm not a competitive person.
Yeah, I am. So.
Right.
But I love competitive games, but I also love cooperative games. But the theme for this one is, it's more graspable almost, because I've never robbed a fucking bank and I had to escape a city.
Yeah.
And visually, I think this looks really, really cool too. It's just a different design. What do you think, actually, this is an important aspect, what do you think of the victory point mechanic? The fact that your victory points are not, like, they're tangible. So it's like, you gain them, but you're most likely going to spend them. Like, it's so weird. Because victory points in a competitive game is you only want it to go up. It's not something that you would ever spend to lose.
Yeah.
Now there's games that have it to where it's like money at the end of the game is every dollar is a point. So you have to think about, well, do I want to spend this and lose points or keep it? This one, it's just like your victory points are kind of like your way of buffering how bad you're doing.
The only thing that I'm okay with the point system. I'm not sure about calling it victory points.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing I don't like about it. I like that it's blue. It kind of represents clean air. You know, so you're offsetting. They could have done maybe like a leaf symbol to represent, you know, green points or something. I mean, I think they could have named it differently. I like it.
I like it because the other thing is with the knowledge, I like that how knowledgeable you are, you can either get money or you can get victory points.
And you have more of an impact on that decade.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if you're up to 6, you're like, well, I get 6 points. I can offset quite a bit of emission off that.
By just doing that.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I can't really think of anything else that we haven't touched on besides literally just talk about, you know, every single aspect. What do you think about the color of that? No. So scale of 1 to 10.
9.5.
9.5.
I'd say I'm not going to just recapping. I think theme is phenomenal. I think it plays very well. Really, the negatives are small in my opinion.
Yeah.
Even though they said, hey, you can play it perfectly and lose. I kind of take that as a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
Because it makes me appreciate our victory last time even more because we did get through it.
Yeah.
I think next time I want to play just 2-player with some of the house rules we talked about to see if that enhances the experience a little bit. But I think 9.5. I really, really like this game. Cool.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I'm a little under. I think I'm at a 9. An escape plan would still be a 9 for the exact same reasons. But because for me, like, it is a bit of a challenge. But since I play so many games all the time and I value my time quite a bit, I want the challenge and I do very much like it. But I don't like the idea of spending 3.5 hours. Like, because imagine the defeat isn't as sour because we only made it to decade 220, but can you imagine if it was 2040 and we just lost because of a tile flip?
Yeah.
That's essentially like having a deck of cards and then one of them in there says you lose.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it is, because unfortunately, like, at the beginning of the game, if you play the tiles down and you can know, okay, well, we just ignored them, so that's our own fault, but you can't do anything about those tiles getting flipped. So, I think it would be a 9 for me because of that, because of those fossil fuel tiles. I like that they're in the game, I just don't like the fact that they come out at the end of the decade, where you can't do anything about it, in a game where you can do everything about everything, you know? So
I think flipping them over at the start of the decade would almost eliminate that.
Right.
So I'm really curious to play it again.
Unless, like, watch, I just been fucking myself the entire time. It's not. I mean, for each region, yes, start, if the current decade space has a power plant, you skip it, otherwise fill the empty space by randomly drawing a fossil fuel power plant from the fossil fuel deck, and you decrease it by that much. And then if you can't pay it, then you pay a fine, which costs you points. See, that's fine too. If you can't pay that, you can pay the fine. Like, if it's like, oh, we didn't do that, so we lose a CEP, or unless you control the area, then it's like, oh, well, then I have to lose it, or I have to pay it. But yeah, and then reducing it, it's just, because I understand that also the increase of costs.
Right. Because the deeper we get, the harder it is to
we fucked ourselves even more anyway. I was just thinking about that. We lost 2 points per tile. That's open.
You're right, we did. So
yeah, it's not. So we lost 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22.
Yeah, so we would have been down to like 3 points.
Yeah. So, because we weren't able to. And those could have been our own fuck-ups. We focused more on trying to get forestation out, when it wasn't asked for.
Right.
So, I mean, but I get it. Like, I don't even, that's not even a negative for me. That's part of the game where it's like, we need to focus on what the fucking environment is asking for us, which if we don't do that, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I think we strategized the current game too much off the previous one. We're like, hey, let's get a forest one right out there to start with. When we probably could have had like 2 to 3 more plants built and not worried about forest right away.
Yeah, because no one was asking for it. Like, I mean, some of them were asking for knowledge in forest, towards at least most, but
They're not really.
because yeah, we did think about, oh well, forest is really good. Well, it is, but it's only really good when the fucking current environmental situation needs it.
Yep.
And this one didn't. It for some reason it wanted recycling, and then wanted it in Asia and Oceania.
Yep. I agree.
So that probably is so.
Probably where everyone-
Looking back, it's probably that probably is our own fault. Like,
once again, thematic.
right? So
Not worried about what the current environmental need is.
yeah. So so maybe with that being said, I'm still gonna keep it at 9. I still don't like how the end of the decade most likely determines if you win or lose. But I guess with more experience, if you play it more and more, you would just look at you know that those are in there, so you can think, okay, at any point, fucking Europe can just open up a coal factory and fuck us, so we need to plan for that.
Yep.
And then if it doesn't happen, then you're just that much better off.
Right.
So, still going to give it a 9. I think that's still a very, very solid score.
I agree.
That it doesn't, it's not going to be like, I don't want to play this game. So 9.5 and 9. You got anything else?
No.
Cool. So that's our thoughts on CO2 Second Chance. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching this, and if you like this video, then click the subscribe button below to enjoy any video that I put out. And right next to that subscribe button is a little bell. Click that so you get notified of whenever I actually upload these videos. If you want to support the channel, you can definitely visit my Patreon page. The link is in the description below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.